Testing.
Enable tipping for all tokenized communities. So today's talk is going to be a walkthrough of the different aspects of tipping, especially coming from the technical point of view, to surface some of the complexity behind tipping and give you some opinions, the different ways of tipping can happen and what the technical stack is behind different implementations and the mechanism designs. All right. So first of all, let's talk about what is tipping. Right? So you might have your own definition, but I kind of search Google and somehow it gives me this simple sentence say, tipping is the act of giving money to someone, right? So that's really easy to understand. But of course, tipping has different purposes. Sometimes you just, to appreciate them providing good service, or you like giving, good feedback on somebody created as a content online. Those are the different things you can do with tipping. But at the end of the day, it's actually just the act of moving money from your account to somebody else's account. Um, so, but if you go deeper into tipping, you'll realize there are many different interesting dimensions of perspective for tipping, right? So, the formalization of tipping is like, say, you have to transfer units of some assets or token from A to B, right? But really, what's interesting is the different variables we have here. So we need to understand what assets you are transferring. Are they kind of just fiat money or crypto tokens? Then you decide how much you want to transfer. Okay. Then from the participation perspective, you are the tipper, so you are the from part, and the recipient side will be the to part. And of course, even more interesting, sometimes you can do from A to B and C and do something else. Then even for the transfer itself, there are also interesting technical meanings behind that as well. So I want to decompose the problem statement and try to surface some of the technical understanding of the tipping, right? So number one is where does it happen? So for like traditional tipping, it happens in a restaurant or somewhere, right? So you have meal there and you appreciate the waiters or waitress for the good service. Then whenever they present the final check, you just mark, okay, I'm going to give 5%, 10%, or whichever number. Okay? And very much that happens in a on-site presence in a restaurant, right? Another way is like if you call Uber or like DoorDash, then toward the end of the cycle, you say, okay, I'm going to tip this, delivery person some amount of that, money as a service. So that's again, it's online, but it's still connecting to the real world. Then when it comes to the crypto side or the social side, people actually can do tipping on many different social platforms, right? Like you can do that inside Discord, you can do that in a Telegram group, you can use Wordcast, you can use Twitter, you can use any web client. So also there are many different mobile apps you can do. So understanding where the tipping happen, it's interesting because toward the end, you need to resolve these different variables, right? So you need to figure out who's A, who's B, and how you identify them. For example, on Discord, you use the @ sign to mention somebody so that you can understand who's the recipient. Or on like Twitter, you use the Twitter handle. Um, so many different ways to connect from A to B, right? So you need to have identify or name for that party. Then secondly, when you try to transfer some money, money can come in many different forms, right? So we often talk about the fiat money, which is could be US dollar or some other currencies. Then in crypto, there are many different forms of tokens. You have fungible tokens, you have non-fungible tokens, and you also have some other form of digital assets. Even these verifiable credentials, points. So how do we represent that? It's an interesting angle as well, right? Then we need to decide how do we transfer. Do we need to have a middleman? Do we just take the money out of A and directly put to B? And also, when it comes to the crypto side, we also have to worry about which blockchain are you on, what token you have. You might have to break token from one chain to another chain. You might have to swap the token from X to Y. So there's quite a bit interesting complexity behind tipping. So my purpose is really to remind each of us to think about that and see how technically we can solve all the different issues. Another angle to look at tipping is we have different infrastructure and different mechanism design for tipping. So the first one is you sort of have to decide if the tipping is going to happen off-chain versus on-chain. Off-chain means you don't use a blockchain to coordinate the money transfer, right? So you basically say, okay, I'm going to do that, from inside a social platform, and I kind of rely on somebody to take care of that transfer for me. So that also relevant to another dimension, which is that going to be a centralized approach versus a decentralized approach? So centralized approach is easy to understand. So you sort of have a service provider as a middleman. And when A try to transfer some money to B, what A does is it probably gives some money to the middleman, and the middleman maintain a ledger for the different parties. Say, okay, A, now you have 100 Collab.Land tokens, right? And B have 0 Collab.Land tokens. Then when you do a tip, so say A wants to tip B with 5 Collab.Land tokens, then the centralized provider will change the database record, say, okay, now A has 95 and B has 5, right? So in that case, a tipping becomes 3 steps. Step 1 is you deposit some fund into that provider, just like say, hey, I want to approve or give like 100 Collab.Land tokens to the middleman, and that middleman can be the facilitator of the tipping, right? So that's kind of like a deposit flow. Then once you have deposit on the ledger, whenever you try to do a tipping, operation, then you basically make service API call to that centralized provider. Say, okay, I want to move 5 Collab.Land token from my account to B's account, and then the centralized provider doing that kind of online transaction, say, okay, let's deduct the 5 points from A's account and then move that 5 points into B's account, right? So that need to happen sort of like automatically, so that you don't have a double tipping or double spending. So that's being guaranteed by the database operations or transactions, right? So that's a traditional way, and this database like ledger could be a real database, could be even a spreadsheet. I know some of the service providers actually use a spreadsheet to maintain the balances for each of the accounts. Okay, so that's a centralized provider approach, which requires a trusted middleman that facilitate the transaction and keep itself honest about the balance for each of the transactions and for each of the accounts, right? So some benefits for doing that, because usually that's very cheap and very quick, because a database operation is really very scalable and very efficient, right? But then there's some trust assumptions need to be established. Then in the world of blockchain, we often prefer to have a decentralized approach. So that means, all the parties involved in that picture, like say, we have the party A and we have the party B, and also we have the service provider, which can be a smart contract, and a smart contract could be that trustless coordinator to make sure, fulfill the duty that move the asset from A to B, so that ensure the atomicity and the security and the integrity of that transfer. Okay. So another interesting angle to look at is how fast that tipping can happen. Right? So I believe that different ways to do so. One is very much say immediately, because say you want to, A wants to tip B with 5 Collab.Land tokens, and whenever you finish that on-chain transaction, then the 5 tokens will arrive in B's wallet or account. Then the B will immediately see that, and A also have that deduction from their account immediately. Okay? So that's kind of like an immediate tipping. But there's also retrospective tipping. So if you follow degen tipping, right? So in the FATCast conversation, you have different casts, and let's say somebody built an interesting open source project that can, create a lot of value, and you like that project, and you want to appreciate the contribution. Then you can reply to that cast saying, okay, 100 DJs. So that means you express your intent to give that, publisher a corresponding tip in units of DJs. But in a way, that's really off-chain, because it does not trigger an on-chain transaction right away. It just express your intent to give certain amount of tips to that party. It's very much like you writing a note, a little bit like IOU note, say, okay, B, I'm willing to give you this amount of tokens because of this. And that becomes evidence. You said you want to give B that amount of token. Then periodically, there's going to be some tally. Say, okay, looking at the last month, wrote 3 IOU nodes. Say, okay, first time is 5 tokens, second time 20 tokens, and third time 30 tokens. Then you adding all these tokens up together, right? So that's the total amount you tip from A to B, and of course vice versa. B can do that same thing to A or to C. So those tally numbers will become the overall events being replaced on the ledger, and the ledger say, okay, over the last period of months, A actually, promised to give B this amount of tokens. That deduction will happen at the end of the month. So that sort of becomes a retrospective tipping. Right? So these different ways need to have a different technical stack behind that. Let's kind of incrementally expose what's possible. And going back to the basics, so we also need to understand how do you fund your wallet or account, because say for A, you want to tip B, right? So you need to have something that you can control. And how do you control that? For the crypto world, usually you need to have a wallet, right? Because for the wallet, you are the only one that has the signing capability to authorize the transaction. And with the emergence of smart contracts, of course, smart contracts could be treated as a contract-based wallet. All right. So the wallet representing the ownership you have on certain funding. So basically, when you involve Web3 tipping, you usually need to have a wallet or account to start with. So first of all, how do you get that wallet? How do you get that account? There are many interesting challenges around the onboarding, right? For the traditional way, you get your EOA wallet, which is an externally owned account. And basically that's something like the MetaMask, a way of giving that wallet to you, and you memorize the seed phrase slash private key, so you have the full control of the wallet. Then on the other side, you get a public key, which is 0x something, and that public key will become your identity, your identifier for the communication. Let's say wallet A wants to send 100 Collab.Land tokens to wallet B. So in that case, when you open MetaMask, right, you basically say, okay, here's the 0x address for wallet B. And of course, sometimes the ENS names can help you to memorize that 0x address. So you just type in, xyz.ens to simplify that identification. Okay. Now, of course, for the MetaMask, I don't have to demonstrate that. It's like say, okay, you pick the recipient, you pick the wallet you want to send the tipping from, and you decide what blockchain you're going to use and what asset you want to use for that transfer. So technically, the transfer is just the same behind the tipping, right? So I would imagine that's actually maybe the simplest form of on-chain transactions you can do, just to do transfer. And that's probably the most common transaction a lot of people do on-chain as well. And when it comes to tipping, like you can tip the native tokens, you can tip the ERC20 tokens, and even NFTs. We'll come to that. But now think about for party A and party B, you have a wallet or account, right? And how do you get the money into your account at the first place? Of course, like if you have a EOA from MetaMask, then you can have your friends, have your family members to transfer some, assets into your, address. That's one way. Another way is you do like a fiat onboarding. So you pay credit card, you pay debit card to a centralized provider, then they take that money and give you the corresponding digital assets or the crypto tokens into your address. Then that assets will show up in your wallet, and you have the full control on that. Okay. So those are the interesting challenges even for tipping itself. The very first step is you need to have a wallet. You need to have an account, right, to represent yourself, and you have the full control. And the secondly is you need to get some fund into your wallet account. And we are talking about the different ways of tipping, different currency you can do tipping. So also some complexity when you do on-chain transactions, you have to pay the gas fee. And usually the gas fee are required from the native tokens. So that means if you want to tip Collab.Land token from A to B, A's wallet might have to equip not only just some Collab.Land tokens, but potentially requires the native tokens for that blockchain. Say on the Optimism L2, then you need to have the Optimism ETH. Then to get the ETH from other blockchain to OP, you might have to do some bridging. So those are the hidden complexity, even before a very simple like a tipping transaction, that on the technical side, we have to surface that and make it as easy, as error-prone as possible, so that all kinds of users will have the productivity and the ease of use to go through this journey. Right? Even though some of them as a one-time charge, because once you have the token on your wallet, and you can actually, just going back and forth with that. But for the onboarding part, for the bootstrapping part, there's some interesting challenges there. That's for the social funding for tipping. Right? Now going back to the on-chain transaction-based tipping. Right? So usually we know for every single transaction on chain, there's going to be a fee involved. So who's going to pay the fee? So we have different options here. Traditionally speaking, whoever submit the on-chain transaction will pay the gas fee. And to pay the gas fee, you need to have the native tokens on that blockchain, right? So the gas is becoming a very interesting blocker for a lot of users coming to crypto and Web3. Now with the emergence of ERC-467 smart accounts, gas fee is somewhat under control in a way. Say now there's a possibility you don't have to pay gas for every single user operation. It's not saying nobody pays the gas fee, but just a different design. For example, we could have this sponsorship. We could have this prepaid plan. We could even deduct the gas fee from the token you have. So the ERC-467 paymaster is actually abstract away that responsibility and introduce the flexibility so that you can have different ways to cover the gas fee, like paying the gas fee every single transaction, and requiring the user to have the gas tokens is quite annoying, right? It's kind of becoming a huge barrier for a lot of newcomers. So being able to leverage this new development in the ERC-467 smart contract, I think it opens some door for the simplified UI UX and opens us some design opportunity there as well. Then for the gas fee itself, it's similar as the social funding for tipping, right? You need to have some valuable asset to cover the gas fee, and that could be the native token, could be the ERC-20 token. Say if you want to tip Collab.Land token from A to B, right? You could say, okay, I'm willing to pay a few Collab.Land tokens to cover the gas fee, thanks to the ERC-4844 that reduce the L1 data fee for L2s. Now the transaction fee on L2s like OP is reasonably cheap. Say one transaction only costs 2-3 cents, right? So that opens the possibility for some of the ERC-20 tokens that can be a meaningful payment method. Let's say Collab.Land token is worth of 1 cent per token today. So that means to cover a transaction, you might have to pay in 3 Collab.Land tokens that will have the equal value of 3 cents to cover the gas fees, right? With the reduction of the gas fees and also the emergence of the ERC-20 token value, now I think it's completely possible to cover the gas fee using the ERC-20 tokens. And of course, like ERC-20 token is not a native token to pay the gas. So just some coordination need to happen. So for the paymaster or even on the user operation side, we can calculate by some pricing oracle. They say, okay, we do some estimate and say this transaction will cost 5 cents, right? And of course, you can use the native token that equals to the 5 cents US dollar value to pay the gas. Or you can say, my ERC-20 token is worth like 1 cent per token, then I just have to give you 5 tokens to pay the gas, right? Then the paymaster could be the decentralized middleman to do the deduction for you as part of the user operation you're submitting, right? Or you can say, okay, I'm going to pay in native tokens. And of course, for some other use cases, you can even get sponsorship. So you don't have to pay the gas by yourself. You get sponsorship from the service provider, from the advertiser. So you kind of get that for free. And being able to access on-chain transactions without worrying about the gas fees and without funding your account with the native tokens, it's a big improvement. Okay, so that's kind of the gas fee part of the thing. Then going back to the carrier of tipping, right? So you need to have a starting point, and you need to have that container for the money or for the asset. right? So we talk about the different kind of wallets. And that very much like you could have an EOA wallet that's controlled by the key pair. And then now you can get a small account, and the small account can extend the different capability to verify the ownership. Say you can use a passkey to verify the small account ownership. You can even potentially use a social login or ZK proof, or like another EOA. So it just make it much simpler to claim the ownership of the smart account, and then use the smart account as the contract-based wallet to access the tipping functions. The simplest form of tipping could be still done inside MetaMask, say using an EOA, but kind of in a social platform, if you decide to use an EOA using a bot, because the bot is supposed to automate some of the low value transactions, right? And you don't want to do every single time. You have to launch the MetaMask wallet, either the desktop version as a browser extension or the mobile version, so that you have to sign it, right? So that means you want to give some budget to the bar, like say you can tip this amount of tokens without the approval every single time. So that kind of limit the EOA signing. So there's different ways to implement that. For example, for EOA, you can approve the ERC20 token so that you give some allowance for the smart contract to do that transfer for you. Or like you use a smart account, and the smart account have a different way to verify the authorization. Like you get a passkey signature, you get a session key for a short period of time. So these are the different ways to make it easy to access the tipping transactions. All right, so that's the tipping wallet. So I want to show a diagram that kind of explain what we think we can actually deliver an interesting tipping solution in the context of Collab.Land. So let me open the diagram I drew a while ago. So we are thinking about so at the beginning when we talk about tipping, right? So we first have to identify the user, and the way to identify the user, like from A to B, we have different approach. So we have the traditional platform IDs. Say if the tipping happens in Discord, Telegram, Twitter, email, SMS, or whatever, so your natural identity is your platform identity. That could be your email address, it could be your Discord handle, could be your Telegram username, or could be your phone number, right? Then going to the decentralized world, you can have crypto wallets, you can have passkeys. So those are the different ways to identify A and B. And of course, you need to have a way to authenticate the users so that we know you are really A or you are really B. And for the tipping perspective, I think we mostly care about the source side. So say, if A want to tip something to B, we need to really make sure whoever initialized the tipping is A. So we need to do some, authentication, and also make sure the authorization is really the intent of the party A, right? So there's some interesting angle to that. And for Collab.Land, because we have huge presence on the social platforms such as Discord or Telegram, and as part of the Collab.Land initiative, we start to, fresh out this easy onboarding process. So very much say, you start with your social identity, which is your Discord ID or Telegram ID. Then we can immediately give you a decentralized ID, which is kind of like a intelligent EOA that's been backed by MPC network, right? So what differs that from a traditional EOA is you don't have to download the MetaMask and create your key pair, and you have to really struggle to decide where to put the C phrase and then not to leak it to somebody else. for us, like you start from Discord, Telegram, and immediately we can tell you what's your decentralized ID is through an MPC network. And for that MPC network, you never disclose that private key to any party, not to the service provider, not even to yourself. So it's very much say your Discord ID is a social truth. As long as you can verify you own that Discord ID, then you have the ownership of that, so-called like a decentralized CID or a PKP. But technically speaking, that's a specialized EOA, but the key is being managed by a network. So you kind of divide the key into multiple shares. And then when it comes to the on-chain transaction, really for the on-chain transaction, you don't need to have the private key, right? So the only thing you need is the ability to sign. So really what matters here is the signature, right? So imagine in a network with so many nodes, and each node can contribute a subset of the signature. So that's how the MPC network is doing. So let's imagine that 100 operators, then you decide the threshold. You need to say at least 8 signature can be used. Then you collect 8 signatures from 8 of the 100 nodes. Then as long as each of them are honest and give you the right share of the signature, you can assemble that signature shares into a final signature, and that final signature can be recovered to the decentralized ID. So that's how the PKP can function as a signer. Now, of course, for the on-chain transaction, you basically just assume you have an intelligent signing agency that signs on behalf of you under your authentication and authorization. Now, of course, the MPC wallet could have a multi-factor protection. So you start with a Telegram, you start with a Discord, but you can register additional factors into that, such as the passkey, such as another EOA wallet. So that means the security model for the signing agent could be protected by multiple factors, right? So that's how we establish a decentralized ID for party A and the party B. But for the ease of use, right? When you're on Telegram, when you're on Discord, you still mention the other party by their Discord username. So if you say Raymond want to tip Chibi, I just want to say /tip 100 Collab.Land token to @Chibi, right? So that's how the platform recognizes the party A and the party B. And behind the scene, we'll translate Raymond's Discord ID and the Chibi's Discord ID into a signer, which is we call a PKP, right? Then the signer also have a counterfactual control of a smart contract. So we deploy a smart contract for the given blockchain. For example, we use Optimum to tip Collab.Land tokens, right? So that means we'll deploy a smart contract for Raymond's Discord account and the Chibi's Discord account. But on the receiving side, that does not happen. That does not have to happen ahead of time, right? Because Chibi as a recipient, as long as we identify what is Chibi's smart account address as her, non-custodial wallet for Collab.Land, then I can already send tips to her account. But for me, since I have to access an on-chain transaction, so I need to claim the decentralized ID by verifying my Discord credential. Then I also get a deployment of my smart account, which is a wallet-based contract, the first time I tip Chibi, right? So that's a one-time thing. If I already tip Chibi, then I want to tip another person in the future, I don't have to do that again, right? And everything happens behind the scene with a smart contract. And again, that circle back to the discussion when you submit a user operation to the third party, what you have to worry about. So the diagram kind of continues on. Say we get your MPC wallet as a PKP, and then you say, okay, the PKP, the MPC wallet will be the owner of your smart account. Then we talk to the ERC 4367 infrastructure, say, hey, by economy or alchemy, I'm going to use your smart account. So please give me your wallet factory, which is a smart contract. Then for the ERC for specific infrastructure, there's an entry point contract, and that's particular to a given chain ID. Then for the gas payment, there's a paymaster smart contract coming into picture. So that's where, like, say, okay, the first time you do a transaction, we basically just talk to the wallet factory and say, hey, please deploy a new contract for this given owner. And for a given owner, you could have multiple accounts. That will be differentiated by the account index, or sometimes it's called a sort. And by default, you will get account index 0. So that means, for a given owner and given sort, you can get a smart account. And this account address can be pre-calculated. It does not have to depend on this physical deployment. That's why, like, say, we have this two-step process. The first step is you go from your like a platform ID to get a self-issue identifier, which is becoming a signing wallet. Then to facilitate the simplicity and the flexibility, we give you a smart account, and the smart account is actually connecting the dots from your signing wallet to the contract-based wallet. Okay, so now we have 3 identities. Your social platform identity, which is a Discord ID, then maps to a MPC wallet, which functions as a signer or owner. That's a second identity, mostly transparent to you. Then the third identity is your smart account. So the smart account will be the placeholder to do all the on-chain transactions. So that's where you need to form the smart account to give the smart account some Collab.Land tokens. Then with the help of the paymaster, we deal with the gas fee issue. Okay. So then going back to the real tipping transaction. So behind the scenes, when you try to tip from your smart account to Chibi's smart account, you kind of go through this cycle. So first of all, we ask your PKP signer to sign the user operation. First of all, we build a user operation, right? And then in that user operation, we first need to figure out what's your smart account address. So that's my smart account address, because I'm the sender for that tipping transaction. Then we need to decide what you are tipping. If you are tipping native tokens, or you are tipping ERC20 tokens, right? So we need to capture that and translate that into a so-called transaction object. So for example, if we want to transfer 10 Collab.Land tokens from my smart account to Chibi's smart account, we need to understand first of all what's the chain ID for the Collab.Land token, and since it's OP mainnet, so that's going to be chain ID number 10, right? Then we also have the contract address for the Collab.Land token on OP, so that's part of the on-chain interaction as well. Then we also need to understand what smart contract method we are invoking. So since we are doing a transfer, so we're calling a transfer function on the Collab.Land token contract. So all the things will be encapsulated into the user operation. Then we populate the user operation with a gas fee estimate. And if we want to pay the gas by a sponsor, or we have a prepaid plan, or we are going to pay the gas fee using the Collab.Land token, that's how the paymaster get into the picture. Then we actually interact with the paymaster and say, hey, we give a approve from the paymaster so that the gas fee will be paid by the paymaster deposit. Then later on, I can either pay the paymaster back, or I can actually get that sponsorship. So the paymaster and the data kind of give a pointer to the paymaster as well as the proof, right? So then we kind of bundle everything together. So now we produce a so-called like a user operation hash, right? So the hash will becomes a stamp. Then we need to have a signature. So the signature will becomes that stamp. Say, okay, I approve it, right? So this becomes the final user operation. Then we kind of can submit that user operation for the blockchain to execute it. Okay. So then, of course, once the blockchain execute the transactions, then the 10 Collab.Land tokens will be removed from my smart account balance and adding to Chibi's smart account balance. Right. Then the game continues on. Chibi now have 10 Collab.Land tokens in her smart account, so she can actually tip another person. Right. And again, with the help of the paymaster, and if we have the ability to use a Collab.Land token for tipping as a gas payment, then Chibi doesn't need to do anything to become a party, because say I'm the party A and the Chibi is a party B, right? Chibi never have any crypto wallet, never have any crypto asset, and since I give 10 Collab.Land tokens to Chibi, and with the infrastructure from Collab.Land, she already had this MPPC signer that's controlled by her Disco credential, and also she got a free smart account. So she has a presence on the crypto side. Now she has 10 Collab.Land tokens in her account. She can actually tip another person C with 5 Collab.Land tokens. And in that sense, she does not have to do anything. So she can, just pass on that game right away. So that's the beauty of with this non-custodial infrastructure we are building, and the deterministic mapping from your Disco ID to some MPC wallet to a flexible smart account, and also with the paymaster and the gas, coverage. Then B as a party never have any experience on crypto, so she can start to tip on Disco and engage in all these cryptable transactions, which is pretty meaningful and pretty exciting. So I kind of dump a lot of information here and then try to go from the use case and try to connect the dots from the different use cases to help us understand the nuances behind each of the primitives have, and also kind of illustrate our direction inside Collab.Land. So I'm personally very excited about this new approach, and hopefully each of you can start to try it soon. So that's a little bit leaking here, but I'm just very excited to share that information here. Stay tuned here. Chibi, I think that's all the material I have today. Going back to you.
Thank you so very much. It's been fantastic listening to you talk about this, and I'm overly excited about tipping. I have a question for you, if that's okay. And I wanted to mention. Okay, thank you. I wanted to mention too that if anyone has any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat, and Raymond will make sure to answer to any questions that you have. But for my question, in the past, we have talked about GM Pass and how it's being used for kudos, and I'm wondering, is GM Pass something that we would be using for tipping too, or how would that work?
Yeah, so very good question. And when I talk about this MPC wallet or PKP, GM Pass is actually the brand we had in the past to give each Disco user a decentralized ID. And for some of the mini apps we already have, such as the Kudu mini app, we use that MPC wallet as a signer for verifiable credentials. So it's very much an off-chain signed message to attest you did that thing, because when you try to give a Kudu from A to B, right, really that's also a meaningful transfer, but you are not transfer something financially valuable, so you are kind of just giving credit to that user. So the whole infrastructure is similar. Like from A's point of view, you automatically map to a GM Pass. Then when you try to sign something, the GM Pass will be physically claimed on demand. The only difference there is you are not transfer any tokens for the Kudu app. You basically just create a signature. It's a little bit like an IOU or a note, but the note has your stamp. So at the beginning, we are talking about the non-immediate tipping, right? So I think in the future, there's a possibility these Kudu apps will become an interesting factor. So we can somehow transform that into a future tipping feature. That means, say, I promise, like, because I'm giving credit to you, and that potentially that could be translated into some token exchange, right? So that's just a very interesting way to implement this retrospective tipping. So very good question there.
Oh, thank you so much.
And I also want to briefly mention, like, we did some experiment in the past. Like, some of you might remember, we have this key channel tipping, right? So the key channel tipping is a hybrid approach. Like, say, you move some funds not to a centralized database, but to a little bit like decentralized service managed by the fund account. Then you basically just sign off-chain messages to write this tipping note. Then the key channel system is actually tally your tipping notes and make the transfer on behalf of you. So there could be some middle ground, like to have a hybrid approach, like some happening on chain, some happening off chain. But the integrity is achieved by the crypto signatures, so that whoever sends the tips, they cannot deny it. And whoever try to fix some data, it cannot be verified. So we will probably come out some design that allow both like off-chain tipping and on-chain tipping to create a very interesting story there.
That does sound very exciting. Thank you so very much, Raymond. I know that we're almost at the end of the hour here. So I think it's time to distribute the Bow app, if that's okay.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. So whoever has questions, you can show here. You can, post to Twitter or reach out to us. We are happy to discuss any of the questions and your use cases. And hopefully this will become a very meaningful building blocks for our tokenized communities in the near future.
For sure. I'm just making
So
sure.
I'm going to stop streaming at this point and then go to the fun part of our pops.
Sounds good. Thank you again, Raymond. And for everyone in the audience, if you'd like to claim today's Bow app, I know that we have an audience on Twitter as well. But for the Bow app, we do this claiming process in our Collab.Land Discord server. So you would need to join. You can directly go to discord.gg/Collab.Land, or you can also go to our Twitter's bio and you'll find our link tree in there. And inside of our link tree, you'll find an invite link to our Collab.Land Discord server as well. But if you are already in our Discord server, you can go to any of the channels inside our Discord and type down /BowUpClaim. If you're in the state chat, you can click the command that I've sent. It will be highlighted in blue. And today's claim phrase is tip. TIP. All lowercase and with no spaces. Just add one word. Tip. Inspired in today's wonderful topic about tipping. Once again, the secret phrase is tip. Once you write that down, you can hit the enter button and you will get a code for you to claim your Bow app. Please let me know what you think of this Bow app. I think it's cute because Ace has found a new friend and they're both looking at a collab token. Also, if you're not able to claim for any reason, if it's, giving you any errors, make sure to let us know and I can give you an additional link for you to claim the Bow app. No worries about that. I'll repeat it one more time just in case. If you want to claim the Bow app, use /BowUpClaim and the claim phrase is Tip. Oh, James, I asked the same question yesterday when I was making it. And there's not none just yet, but I think you should have one. They look like besties, and I'm so happy for them to be friends. So we'll come up with one. They're adorable together. But with that, I think that we are good to wrap things up. Thank you so much, Raymond. This has been a fantastic presentation, and I'm just very excited about tipping overall. So, really, thank you so very much, and thanks everyone for attending.
Yeah,
We
my
will see you
pleasure.
guys.
And thank you for
Yeah,
everyone for attending. Yeah.
we will see you guys tomorrow, hopefully for our Collab.Land community Twitter Spaces. We'll make sure to post the link as soon as we have it. But in the meantime, I will drop a link to the event so that you can hit the interested button if you'd like to attend. Again, thank you so much. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye. Have a wonderful Wednesday, everyone.